Coming up on The World Today. Indian farmers breach Delhi's Red Fort in huge protest on Republic Day. Italian Prime Minister Giuseppe Conte resigns following COVID-19 pandemic criticism. Plus, EU warns coronavirus vaccine producers they must deliver agreed supplies. Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Teniola Shoboale. Thousands of farmers in India have clashed with the police at Delhi's historic Red Fort complex. They are protesting at the country's agriculture reform plans. The protests form part of a huge rally that was planned to coincide with India's Republic Day.
Thousands of Indian farmers stormed the historic Red Fort complex in the capital, one even swinging from a flagpole to the sound of cheers as violence escalated elsewhere. The farmers are angry about new laws that they say help large private buyers at their expense. Protesters also charged at the police with sticks, who in turn used their batons and tear gas shells to disperse them. The clashes were preceded by a convoy of tens of thousands of farmers driving their tractors through the fringes of the city. Hundreds, some on horseback, broke away from the main route approved by police to head for central Delhi, saying they want to reach the capital to get their message to Prime Minister Narendra Modi. The protests coincided with India's Republic Day and threatened to overshadow the annual military parade. For almost 2 months, the farmers have been camping outside New Delhi in protest of the agricultural reforms. The government says the reforms will liberalize the agriculture sector, but farmers say it puts their livelihoods at risk. Agriculture employs about half of India's population of 1.3 billion, and unrest among an estimated 150 million land-owning farmers worries the government. The protests pose one of the biggest challenges to Prime Minister Narendra Modi since he came to power in 2014. 9 rounds of talks with farmers' unions have failed to end the protests. And farm leaders have rejected government's offer to delay the laws for 18 months, making a push for repeal instead.
Now, VOA correspondent Anjana Parischa joins us now from New Delhi for more. Anjana, thank you so much for joining us on the program.
Thank you.
What more can you tell us
how
about?
are you?
Yeah, I'm not too bad, thanks. What more can you tell us about the farmers' protests in New Delhi today?
Well, it was a day of chaos in Delhi on what is usually a quiet national holiday. Today, as your report mentioned, is Republic Day, when India celebrates the anniversary of the adoption of its constitution. Now, the farmers were to take out this rally on the outskirts, but it's been a very peaceful protest so far, so no one had expected them to break barricades, hurl stones, and swarm into the Indian capital. The images of them scaling the ramparts of the Red Fort, planting religious and farm union flags were absolutely unprecedented. Unlike anything in the past or any protest in the past, even by the evening they had not left. The Red Fort has huge symbolic significance. This is from where the Prime Minister gives his Independence Day speech. So, the citizens of Delhi were really taken aback. And of course, farm union leaders have disassociated themselves from the violence, saying the protest was infiltrated by anti-social elements.
These protests have been going on for about 2 months now. The government says the reforms that started the protests will liberalize the agriculture sector, but farmers believe they'll be at loss here. But what measures has the government taken to cushion the impact of these reforms on farmers?
In the several rounds of talks they've held so far, the government has assured them that they will not suspend the decades-long practice of offering farmers what is called here a minimum support price for wheat and rice. This actually lies at the heart of the protest. In North India, where they grow a lot of wheat and rice, worry about losing this safeguard under which the government has traditionally bought their grain at a fixed price. They fear private players will drive down prices. The government, of course, says it will bring in new investment. So in the latest round of negotiations, the government has also offered to put the farm laws on hold for up to 18 months while they, sort of allay their concerns. But farmers say they just want the laws scrapped and they want this system of a minimum support price to be legalized.
Like you mentioned, the farmers don't seem to be giving up anytime soon. Last week, they rejected a government offer to put the laws on hold. So what's the way forward now? How does the government plan to tackle the crisis?
It's really hard to say. So far, we've not had any comment from the government. But I think what authorities will hope is that support for the farmers will now dwindle in the wake of the violence. There was a fair amount of sympathy for the farmers. The protest so far has been totally peaceful. They are seen as people who feed the country, and pictures of them hunkered along highways in the cold Delhi winter had won them a lot of support. However, now the violence will put the farmers in the back foot. So the government will hope that they accept their offer to put the laws on hold for up to 18 months.
And Anjana, can we expect more protests after this? And just clarify, we're hearing reports that one person has died as a result of the violence today.
Yes, one person did die in the violence today. That happened actually when a tractor in which he was riding overturned. This happened in the heart of the city. Initially, the protesters were very angry. They even draped his body in a national flag. They claimed he was killed in police firing. However, there was no firing, and CCTV footage subsequently did reveal that he died in that accident. On the violence, from now on, I think the farms union leaders will try to pacify the farmers, will try to ensure there is no more violence, because it is very important if they want to carry on with their protest peacefully for the repeal of the laws.
All right, then, VOA correspondent Anjana Pasricha, thank you so much for joining us on The World Today.
Thank you.
Now, moving away from India, Italian Prime Minister Giuseppe Conte has resigned amid doubts that he will be able to form and lead a new coalition government. He has been criticized for his handling of the coronavirus pandemic, in which more than 85,000 Italians have died. Earlier today, Mr. Conte, who lost his Senate majority last week, met with the president. There are speculations that the president may ask him to form a stronger government, but someone else could become Italy's prime minister, or a snap election could be called. The European Union has warned COVID-19 vaccine producers that they must deliver agreed supplies amid fears reductions could seriously hamper its inoculation drive. AstraZeneca and Pfizer-BioNTech have both said that production problems mean they cannot supply the expected numbers. But the EU warns it could restrict exports of vaccines made in the bloc, with Germany's health minister demanding fair distribution. The UK's vaccine minister also warned of the dead end of vaccine nationalism. AstraZeneca is mainly produced in the UK, while the UK's supplies of the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine come from the company's Belgian plant. The number of people to have died from coronavirus in the United Kingdom has exceeded 100,000, and that's according to data from the UK's national statistics, which shows that there have been nearly 104,000 deaths since the pandemic began. Here's more on this and other developments on our COVID-19 Global Update.
Several Londoners threw their support on Tuesday behind a potential plan for the UK to introduce mandatory quarantine in hotels for some or all arrivals.
I think it's probably necessary, as long as it's not a gimmick, as long as there's some substantial evidence behind it, then absolutely that's anything we can do to prevent the spread of the infection, then needs must.
Prime Minister Boris Johnson has said he was looking at the option of introducing quarantine hotels for those coming to Britain to prevent the risk of vaccine busting new coronavirus variant entering the country. South African President Cyril Ramaphosa has condemned the so-called vaccine nationalism by the world's wealthiest countries. Addressing the World Economic Forum online, he said some government had ordered far more coronavirus vaccines than they needed. Without naming any countries, he appealed to them to release surplus stocks so that others could benefit.
We need those who have hoarded the vaccines to release the vaccines so that other countries can have them. The rich countries of the world went out and acquired large doses of vaccines from the developers and manufacturers of these vaccines. And some countries have even gone beyond and acquired up to 4 times what their population needs. And that was aimed at hoarding these vaccines. And now this is being done to the exclusion of countries, of other countries in the world that most need this. We are all not safe if some countries are vaccinating their people and other countries are not vaccinating. We all must act together in combating coronavirus because it affects all of us equally.
Ambulances carrying COVID-19 patients arrived at Santa Maria Hospital in Lisbon on Tuesday as soaring infection rates at the virus are overwhelming Portuguese hospitals. The health ministry says demand for emergency services has spiked, putting great pressure on response capacity, and Portuguese hospitals have said they are running out of beds. In the Netherlands, police arrested at least 70 people after rioting broke out for a third night after weekend protests that were initially linked to dissent over a government decision to implement a nighttime curfew. But the motivation behind vandalism and other incidents in cities ranging from Rotterdam and Amsterdam to smaller centers of Haarlem, Gellen and Den Bosch was no longer clear, with rioters overwhelmingly in their teens. Prime Minister Mark Rutte had earlier on Monday condemned the riots over the weekend in which anti-lockdown demonstrators attacked police and set fires. All this come as global confirmed cases of COVID-19 near the 100 million mark on Tuesday, with over 99.5 million people reported to be infected by the virus.
Now, the EU has announced plans to create a biodefense preparedness program in the form of a public-private partnership to prepare against the next big health crisis. That's according to the head of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen. The 27-nation bloc, like the rest of the world, is struggling to overcome the COVID-19 pandemic that has already killed tens of thousands of people and prompted economic lockdowns across Europe, causing a deep recession.
The point is that it is only by working together across borders and across sectors that we can tackle our global challenges. No private company or public authority can do it alone. And this is why I believe this new form of blended partnership should prepare and protect us against the next big risk. This is a blueprint for cooperation in today's world. We need to bring together the innovation and the capability of the private sector and the long-term vision and predictability and the funding of the public sector. It is in this spirit that Europe will propose to create a biodefense preparedness program. It will be proactive. We cannot wait for the next pandemic to start preparing. So this new program will be permanent. And it will be fully dedicated to discovering and preparing for known and emerging pathogens, and then developing and manufacturing vaccines at scale to respond to them.
Still ahead on the program. US President Joe Biden moves to put anti-slavery activist Harriet Tubman on $20 bill. More details in a moment. Stay with us. Thanks for staying with us on The World Today. U.S. President Joe Biden says he might be able to raise to $150 million his 100-day goal of administering 100 million vaccination shots for the coronavirus. He adds that it's likely that 1 million or more shots a day will be delivered in about 3 weeks. The president also says he's open to negotiating the eligibility requirement of his proposed $1,400 COVID stimulus check, a nod to lawmakers who have said they should be more targeted to lower incomes.
Heading toward herd immunity. We are optimistic that we will have enough vaccine, and in very short order. We as you know, we came in office without knowledge of how much vaccine was being held in abeyance or available. Now that we're here, we've been around a week or so, we now have that. And we've gotten commitments from some of the producers that they will, in fact, produce more vaccine in a relatively short period of time and then continue that down the road. So I'm quite confident that we will be in a position within the next 3 weeks or so to be vaccinating people at the range of a million a day or in excess of that. That is I promised that we would get at least a 100 million vaccinations. That's not people, because sometimes you need more than one shot, the vaccination, but 100 million shots in people's arms of the vaccine. I think with the grace of God and the goodwill of the neighbor and the creek not rising, as the old saying goes, I think we may be able to get that to 1.5 million a day.
Well, our Washington, D.C. correspondent Maria Bird joins us now for more. Maria, how are Americans reacting to President Biden raising vaccination goals to 1.5 million daily, considering that last week the U.S. had already reached an average of around 980,000 vaccine doses administered daily? Is this ambitious enough?
Good evening, Taniola. Yes, Americans obviously are ready to move forward. They're ready to move out of this. I think that many Americans, especially those who voted for President Biden and were hopeful for the Biden-Harris administration, are looking for this administration to far exceed, I think, the 1.5 million goal. But again, as you saw the president stated, he was not aware of how many vaccines were even available prior to last week. And so at this time, he is making a reasonable goal that I think he believes he can meet with what is available at this time. And so that is really where I think the administration is stuck in a hard place. They obviously would love to meet, I think, the public's expectations, but they don't want to overshot the goal, nor do they want to disappoint the public. So they are hopeful in providing what they believe is a reasonable goal for vaccinations.
Well, the U.S. has had more than double the cases of the next highest country, India. There have been over 420,000 deaths and above 25 million cases. This situation is critical. What are the plans as the Biden administration set in motion to contain this virus?
Well, we're expecting today at 4:45 p.m. Eastern time here in the U.S., we're expecting to hear from the president to provide us with a statement as to these specific plans. We know at this time there's already been a federal mandate that on every federal property you must wear a mask. There is also going to be, we're beginning to see some additional travel bans being put in place, especially with the second strain of the variants of the virus now creeping into the world. So that is something else we're going to see. So we're going to expect to see a clearly laid out plan and expectations that are going to address not only traveling throughout the U.S. and obviously outside of the country, but also the federally mandated mask wearing and what they're going to impose upon states as well. And we probably will also see additional information about how the vaccines will move forward and also how to move people back into work, and obviously how they expect to address the economic issues. There's also been a coronavirus relief bill brought before Congress, so I think that is going to also be discussed, and we were expecting to hear if that will move forward and how that would obviously impact the average American that obviously is struggling at this time as a result of the pandemic.
All right, Maria, certainly a lot for us to keep our eyes on. Thank you so much for your reporting.
Thank you for having me.
Says U.S.-Iranian dual national facing spying charges who attempted to leave the country. Officials did not identify the man but say he had been freed on bail. Iranian media reported last week that a U.S.-Iranian businessman named Imad Shaghi has been arrested as he tried to cross a western border illegally. This could complicate plans by new U.S. President Joe Biden to re-engage diplomatically with Iran. His predecessor, Donald Trump, subjected the Tehran government to a maximum pressure campaign of crippling economic sanctions. Mr. Trump wanted to compel Iranian leaders to renegotiate a 2015 nuclear deal that he abandoned, but they refused to do so and retaliated by violating a series of key commitments. The Biden administration says it will seek to push forward a plan to make anti-slavery activist Harriet Tubman the face of a new $20 bill. A note featuring Ms. Tubman, who was born a slave around 1820, was originally due to be unveiled in 2020. The U.S. Treasury said she would replace former President Andrew Jackson, a slave owner, but the effort was delayed under former President Donald Trump, who branded it pure political correctness.
The Treasury Department is taking steps to resume efforts to put Harriet Tubman on the front of the new $20 notes. It's important that our notes, our money, if people don't know what a note is, reflect the history and diversity of our country. And Harriet Tubman's image gracing the new $20 note would certainly reflect that. So we're exploring ways to speed up that effort, but any specifics would, of course, come from the Department of Treasury. The presidential.
Well, let's head over to northern Finland now, where colourful northern lights danced in the skies last night. According to the local photographer who captured the lights, a minor geomagnetic storm occurred before midnight, with the sky exploding with colours. He said the northern lights erupted twice within 15 minutes and was topped by pink auroras dancing in the northern horizon, which he said was a rare and special sight. The natural light or show, known as Aurora Borealis, took place above the wilderness in the Finnish region of Lapland, near the country's border with Norway and Sweden, where they experienced freezing minus 30 degrees temperatures. Beautiful. And that's the program today. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Teniola Shoboale.